Britt here. Can I be real with you? After meeting and working with thousands of powerful women, I noticed one thing they all have in common. They don't fall into the trap of being nice. They play their own game. And I noticed one more very curious quality that powerful women have. Well, they don't play the blame game. In fact, they know the only way to win the blame game is to not play at all. So let's talk about why blame can be so addictive. Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, it's all their fault, you know, but still feeling powerless? Like somehow, even though you know you're right, you still are feeling stuck? Well, here's the truth. Blame feels good for a moment, but it keeps you trapped. And the dopamine hit that you get from that momentary blame, it's really short-lived and totally ineffective. And from a psychological perspective, blame, it acts like a defense mechanism. It protects our ego. And when something feels wrong, it protects our ego. When something gives, no, it's okay. Blame can kind of serve to protect our ego, but when something goes wrong, our brain tries to shield us from that shame or guilt or whatever it is that's going on by transferring responsibility to someone else. And we get to say, this isn't my fault. And for a moment, it feels comforting. Dr. Brené Brown discusses this as a very way. Dr. Brené Brown describes blame as a way to discharge discomfort and to discharge pain. Think about that. Instead of sitting with our emotions or understanding them, we just put them forward onto someone else. We project our internal mess onto external circumstances. And it's not just emotional, it's actually neurological. And studies have shown us that when we blame someone else, the brain's... Dr. Brené Brown describes blame as a way to discharge different... Okay, it's okay. So I see what's going on here. Dr. Brené Brown describes blame as a way to discharge discomfort and pain. And think about that. Instead of sitting with our emotions or understanding them, we eject them toward someone else. We protect our internal mess by projecting our internal mess onto external circumstances. It's not just emotional either. It's neurological. Studies have shown that when we blame someone, the brain's anterior cingulate cortex lights up, the part involved in detecting errors. We feel like we're correcting a mistake, like asserting order somehow, making sense of chaos. And that tiny dopamine hit from being right, it feels like temporary relief, but in long term, it really weakens your emotional core. So let's get honest. Blame gives us the illusion of control. It lets us take the spotlight off our own discomfort and shine it on someone else. But while blame makes you feel powerful for a moment, it secretly disempowers you. It turns you into a reactor instead of a creator. When you say, oh, I'll just be nice, but then you start saying things like, oh, she ruined my life. What you're actually saying is, I have no way to say how I feel now. And when you say, oh, they're the reason I'm stuck, he's the reason I'm stuck, you give them the power to write your story, and you don't want to do that. So the real truth, is no one can ruin your week without your participation. No one can block your path unless you decide to stop walking. So this is the fundamental shift. Powerful women don't look for fault. They look for responsibility. And they ask, what's written? They ask, what's actually within my control here? And here's how blame traps you. Here's how blame traps you. You get hurt. You find someone to blame. You tell the story, sometimes over and over. You gather allies. You replay the story. You confirm your pain. You stay there. Sound familiar? This is what's called a blame loop, and it is dangerous. Why? Because it keeps you stuck in the past. Blame becomes part of your identity then. I'm the girl whose boss never notices me. I'm the woman who's always overlooked. I'm the one who got cheated on. Whatever your blame story is, these stories start to define us. And we build our lives around avoiding the pain again and again. We close off, we shrink, we armor up. But the problem isn't just the pain, it's the pattern. Because every time we replay the blame, we reinforce helplessness. We strengthen the belief that someone else has more control over our life than we do. And that's not power. That's paralysis. So what do powerful women do differently? Well, first, they pause. That's it. Just pause. They notice when they're triggered, and they don't react immediately. That space, that first pause, is where power lives. Second, they reflect. They ask one of the most uncomfortable but transformative questions. What's mine to own here? Right? Notice they're not asking, whose fault is this? They're asking, what part of this can I learn from? What can I control? What can I improve? Radical responsibility is not about trying to take the blame for everything. It's about owning your choices, your energy, and your voice. In fact, I know a woman for years who blamed her partner for never supporting her business. He just doesn't take me seriously, she'd say. Or one day she had a breakthrough, and she had never really clearly shared her vision with him. And she realized, that's my breakthrough. She realized she expected him to read her mind. So instead, she sat down and mapped out her goals for him and invited him into her mission. And everything changed. That's what powerful women do. They shift from blame to clarity. So let's break this down with quick examples. So remember, blame sounds like they make me feel invisible. Nobody helps me, or people always take advantage of me. Any of these kind of thoughts or statements make you powerless. Ownership sounds like, I've been feeling invisible, and I need to find a way to express that constructively. Or I haven't been asking for help. Maybe it's time for me to start. Or I haven't been enforcing my boundaries. That's on me. So you see the shift here? Blame points outward. Ownership turns inward. And not with shame, but with intention. You see, powerful women speak with intention. Their words build bridges, not walls. And their language reveals awareness, not avoidance. Blame is all about avoidance, and it really sets you back. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. So let's talk about a deeper layer, the spiritual power of letting go of blame. Proverbs 12:19 says, "Do not take revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," right? But leave room for God's wrath, right? Translation here, you don't have to carry the weight of justice. It's not your burden. Leave it up to the Lord. And when we blame, we often do it because we want closure. We want fairness. But the closure isn't about someone else. Someone else saying they were wrong. It's actually about you deciding to move forward despite whether they apologize or not. You know, Proverbs 31 says, "A woman of strength." Proverbs 31 says, "A woman of strength laughs at the days to come." Why? Because she's not caught up in who did what to her yesterday. Her eyes are forward. Her focus is fierce. Her focus is fierce. And letting go of blame, it's an act of faith, really. It's trusting that your peace is worth much more than your point, and that your future is worth much more than a feud. So here's the bottom line. Blame's easy. It's automatic. It feels justified, but it keeps you small. And I want you to rise up to the destiny God has for you. So remember, every time you blame, you trade growth for righteousness or self-righteousness, and you trade clarity for chaos. And you give away your power. So the only way to win the blame game, don't play. Instead, choose ownership. Choose curiosity. Choose responsibility over resentment. Because the most powerful woman in the room, she isn't the one who blames. She isn't the one who blames the loudest or at all. She's the one who takes ownership in silence and moves forward with strength. I'd love to hear from you. What's one area of your life where you've decided to stop blaming and start owning? Drop it in the comments and let's normalize this kind of self-leadership where you can self-reflect and self-correct. That's a superpower. And if this message resonated, please share it with someone you know who may be ready to let go of their story and step into their power. And I hope you subscribe and join us here. Remember, blame's a trap, but you're too powerful to stay stuck. So like and share and subscribe. And if no one told you today, just remember, you are beloved.